The narcissists grip how they enslave your mind and spirit. Let me ask you something before we begin. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like your choices, your thoughts, and your very sense of self are being controlled by someone else's needs, their desires, their endless hunger for validation? If so, I need you to understand something profound right now. It's not just a relationship you're dealing with, it's a spiritual battle. Narcissists don't just take control of your external world. They pierce into the very depths of your soul, twisting your reality until you can no longer tell where they end and you begin. And the worst part, they don't even realize they're doing it most of the time. Or maybe they do, but they don't care. Either way, this isn't about them anymore. It's about you. I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on this. How much of your life is truly yours? How many of your decisions come from your own inner wisdom? And how many are reactions to the manipulative tactics of a narcissist? Narcissists thrive on control. They are masters of illusion, creating a web so intricate and convincing that you start to doubt your own perceptions. They'll gaslight you, making you question your memories, your feelings, even your sense of reality. They'll isolate you, subtly or overtly, cutting you off from the people who could help you see through the fog. And most insidiously, they'll charm you, drawing you in with their charisma, their promises, their grandiose visions of themselves and their role in your life. But here's the truth: they don't want you to know their power over you is not real. It's borrowed. Borrowed from your own energy, your own belief in their illusions. So why do we let them take that power? Why do we hand over the keys to our inner world so willingly? It's because narcissists are experts at finding the cracks in your foundation. They sense your vulnerabilities, the unresolved wounds from your past, and they exploit them.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Maybe you grew up feeling unseen or unheard, and the narcissist swoops in, promising to fill that void. Maybe you have a deep fear of abandonment, and they use that to keep you tethered to them, always afraid of their rejection. But let me tell you something powerful: those cracks in your foundation, they're not weaknesses. They're invitations. Invitations to heal, to grow, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've been taught to neglect or hide. You see, the narcissist isn't just your tormentor. They're also your teacher. Not in the sense that you owe them gratitude or forgiveness. That's a decision only you can make, and only when you're ready, but in the sense that their presence in your life is forcing you to confront the deeper truths about yourself. So here's the first practical step in breaking free awareness. You can't fight an enemy you refuse to see. You need to start observing your interactions with the narcissist from a place of detachment. Imagine you're watching the movie of your life, and you're the main character. Watch how they speak to you, how they react when you assert yourself, how they manipulate situations to keep you off balance. And then ask yourself, what are they triggering in me? Is it a fear of being alone? A need for approval? A desire to avoid conflict? This is where the real work begins. Because the more you understand your own triggers, the less power the narcissist has over you. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need to take back control of your energy. Narcissists are like spiritual parasites. They feed off your attention, your emotions, your reactions. Every time you argue with them, try to prove your worth to them, or seek their approval, you're giving them exactly what they want. So here's the second step: stop feeding the fire. This doesn't mean you ignore them or let them walk all over you. It means you stop engaging with them on their terms. You stop playing the game they've set up for you. Instead, you create your own rules. For example, If they try to provoke you with criticism or blame, don't take the bait. Respond calmly or don't respond at all. If they try to guilt trip you into doing something, remind yourself that their feelings are not your responsibility. But this is easier said than done, isn't it? Because narcissists have a way of making you feel like you're the one in the wrong, like you're selfish or ungrateful for standing up for yourself. And this is where the third step comes in: reclaim your truth. You need to reconnect with who you are beyond the narcissist's influence. Spend time alone, away from their energy. Journal about your thoughts and feelings. Meditate to silence their voice in your head and hear your own inner wisdom. Surround yourself with people who see you for who you truly are, not who the narcissist wants you to be. And most importantly, practice self-compassion. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to fall back into old patterns. That's okay. Healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. Each time you fall, you're still moving upward, learning, growing, becoming stronger. But let me leave you with this question. If you were to strip away all the fear, all the guilt, all the lies the narcissist has made you believe, who would you be? Take a moment to sit with that question, and when you're ready, let's move to the next part of this journey. The power of boundaries, building an unshakable fortress for your soul. Let me be honest with you, breaking free from a narcissist isn't just about cutting ties. It's about rebuilding yourself from the ground up. Because even if they leave your life physically, the damage they've done often lingers. Their voice becomes your inner critic. Their manipulation rewires your sense of reality. Their control leaves scars that convince you freedom is impossible. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize: you can rebuild. You can reclaim your life. And the first step in that process is understanding the concept of boundaries, not just as a defense mechanism, but as an act of self-love. The narcissist thrives on blurred lines. They don't see you as a separate person, they see you as an extension of themselves. Your time, your energy, your emotions, they believe it's all theirs to take. And for a while, you might have believed that too. After all, when someone constantly invades your space, you start to forget it's yours. But let's get real. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How often have you sacrificed your own needs to avoid their anger, their guilt trips, or their silent treatment? That stops now. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're gates designed to protect what matters most: your peace, your values, your sense of self. And the beauty of a gate is that you control who gets to come in and under what circumstances. Start with the small things. If the narcissist interrupts you mid-sentence, don't shrink back, keep talking. If they demand something unreasonable, practice saying, "That doesn't work for me." At first, they'll resist. They'll test you. They'll push back harder than ever because your boundaries threaten their control. And that's when you'll face the hardest question: do you really believe you have the right to say no? Because let's be honest, setting boundaries isn't just about dealing with the narcissist. It's about confronting the part of you that feels guilty for putting yourself first. The part that was taught, maybe long before the narcissist ever came into your life, that your worth depends on how much you give, how much you endure, how much you sacrifice. But I need you to hear this loud and clear: your worth is not up for negotiation. It doesn't rise or fall based on who approves of you or how well you meet someone else's expectations. So let's try something radical. Start valuing your energy like it's your most precious resource. Because it is. Imagine your energy as a bank account. Every interaction, every decision, every emotional reaction either deposits into that account or drains it. The narcissist, they're an overdraft fee. They'll take and take until there's nothing left, and then blame you for being too sensitive or too weak. This is where you take back control. Here's a practical step: limit your responses. Narcissists thrive on conflict, on drama, on emotional reactions. They'll provoke you just to see how much control they still have. Don't give it to them. Keep your responses short, neutral, and firm. If they call you selfish or cruel, let them. Their opinion of you is none of your business. It's not easy. You'll feel the pull to defend yourself, to explain, to make them see your side. But here's the harsh truth: they don't care about your side. They care about winning. And this is the hardest part to accept. You can't fix them. You can't love them into changing. You can't explain your way into their empathy. The more energy you spend trying to change them, the less energy you have to change yourself. So let me ask you this: what would happen if you stopped trying to change them and focused all that energy on building a life where their opinion no longer mattered? That's the power of boundaries. They're not about controlling the other person, they're about reclaiming control over yourself. But boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're also about saying yes to the right things. Yes to your needs. Yes to relationships that uplift you instead of draining you. Yes to the parts of yourself that you've been neglecting because the narcissist made you believe they weren't important. Here's another practical step: start carving out time for yourself. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, make it yours. Use it to do something that brings you joy or peace, something that reminds you of who you are outside of the narcissist's influence. And don't just stop there. Start creating larger boundaries around your emotional space. If the narcissist tries to guilt you into a reaction, take a breath. Remind yourself their emotions are their responsibility, not yours. This might feel cold or unkind at first, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that taking care of others is your purpose. But think of it this way: every time you let the narcissist dictate your emotions, you're giving them a piece of your life. How much more of your life are you willing to give away? Here's a hard truth: boundaries will cost you. They might cost you the relationship. They might cost you the approval of people who don't understand what you're going through. But the price of not setting boundaries is far higher. It costs you your peace. It costs you your freedom. It costs you you. And here's the thing about freedom: it's not just about cutting ties with the narcissist. It's about cutting ties with the version of yourself that let them stay. So let's flip the script. Instead of asking, "How do I get them to stop controlling me?" start asking, "Why do I keep giving them control?" Not as a way to blame yourself, but as a way to understand where your power lies. Because it does lie with you. The narcissist wants you to believe you're powerless, that you need them, that you're trapped. But they're wrong. You've always had the power to walk away. The question is, do you believe it? Let's pause here. Think about what it would mean to build a life where your boundaries are so strong, so sacred, that no one, not even the most manipulative person, can cross them. When you're ready for the next part, we'll talk about something even deeper: how to heal the wounds that made you vulnerable to the narcissist in the first place. Healing the invisible wounds, becoming whole again after narcissistic control. Here's the truth that most people don't tell you: walking away from a narcissist is only half the battle. The real work begins afterward. You see, narcissists don't just leave a mess in your external life, they leave a mess inside you. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's there. The self-doubt. The voice in your head that second-guesses every decision. The feeling that maybe they were right about you all along. It's like they plant seeds of insecurity in your mind, and even when they're gone, those seeds keep growing. Your job now is to uproot them completely. Let's be honest, being involved with a narcissist changes you. It twists your sense of self-worth, distorts your boundaries, and leaves you questioning your identity. How many times have you caught yourself thinking, "Why wasn't I enough?" or "What's wrong with me?" Those thoughts didn't come from nowhere. They were planted over time by the manipulations, the criticisms, the constant need to prove yourself to someone who was never satisfied. But let's get something straight, there was never anything wrong with you. Their behavior wasn't a reflection of your flaws, it was a reflection of their emptiness. They projected their own wounds onto you, and the longer you stayed, the more you absorbed their chaos. So now the question becomes, how do you undo that damage? How do you stop carrying their voice inside your head? The first step is recognizing the lies they told you. Think about the things they made you believe about yourself. Maybe they told you that you were too emotional, too difficult, too selfish. Maybe they convinced you that you couldn't survive without them, that no one else would love you, that you'd never be enough. Now, take a moment to ask yourself, where's the proof? Where's the evidence that any of those things are true? Because chances are, there isn't any. Those beliefs weren't grounded in truth, they were designed to control you. And the only reason they stuck is because, deep down, some part of you already feared they might be true. That's what made their words so effective. They didn't create your insecurities, they exploited the ones that were already there. So now it's time to go deeper. It's not enough to just reject the lies, they'll keep coming back until you address the wounds that made you vulnerable to them in the first place. Let's start with your inner critic. That voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. That's not your voice. It might sound like yours, but it's not. It's a collection of the things you've been told by the narcissist, by society, maybe even by your own upbringing. You need to start challenging that voice every time it speaks. When it says, "You're a failure," respond with, "Says who?" When it says, "You'll never be happy without them," remind yourself of all the times you found joy in your own company. This isn't about pretending to be confident. It's about rewiring your brain to think differently. And speaking of rewiring, let's talk about trust. After dealing with a narcissist, trusting people feels impossible. You start to see manipulation everywhere. You question everyone's motives, even your own. That's normal. When someone has betrayed your trust so deeply, it's natural to put up walls. But here's the thing, those walls don't just keep out bad people, they keep out good people too. They keep you isolated, disconnected, and stuck in survival mode. So here's what you need to do, start small. Trust doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to open yourself up completely to everyone you meet, but you can start by trusting yourself. Trust that you'll recognize red flags next time. Trust that you'll walk away when someone crosses your boundaries. Trust that you don't need anyone else to complete you. And when it comes to trusting others, look for consistency. Don't just listen to what people say, watch what they do. Do their actions match their words? Do they respect your boundaries without pushing back? Do they celebrate your growth instead of feeling threatened by it? Healing isn't about rushing back into relationships. It's about rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself first. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: grief. When you break free from a narcissist, you're not just leaving behind a toxic person, you're leaving behind the future you thought you'd have with them. You're mourning the version of them you hoped they'd become, the promises they made, the good moments that kept you hanging on. And that's okay. Grief is part of the process. It doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. It means you're human. But here's the tricky part: grief can make you nostalgic. It can make you forget the bad times and focus only on the good. That's when you're most vulnerable to going back. When those feelings hit, remind yourself of the full picture. Remember the lies, the manipulation, the times they made you feel small. Don't let selective memory pull you back into the cycle. Another key part of healing is reconnecting with the parts of yourself they tried to erase. Think about the things you stopped doing because they didn't approve. The hobbies, the friendships, the dreams you put on hold to keep the peace. It's time to bring those things back into your life. Start small. Maybe it's reaching out to an old friend or picking up a book you've always wanted to read. Maybe it's taking a dance class or going for a hike. These aren't just activities, they're acts of reclaiming yourself. And while you're at it, take a moment to acknowledge how far you've come. It's easy to focus on how much work you still have to do, but don't forget to celebrate the progress you've already made. The fact that you're even thinking about healing, about breaking free, about rebuilding, that's a victory in itself. Lastly, let's talk about forgiveness, not for the narcissist, but for yourself. Forgive yourself for staying as long as you did, for the times you ignored the red flags, for the moments you let their words get to you. You didn't stay because you were weak, you stayed because you believed in love, in hope, in the possibility of change. That's not something to be ashamed of. But now, it's time to believe in yourself instead. So here's the question: what would your life look like if you stopped carrying their voice, their judgment, their control? If you let go of the version of yourself they wanted you to be and stepped fully into who you really are? You've already started. Keep going. And remember this: you're not just healing from what they did to you, you're healing for the person you're becoming. The past doesn't define you. The narcissist doesn't define you. You define you. And that's where your real power lies.